Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I just want to start by asking you, okay, how did you get started? I mean, a human trafficking specialist, that's kind of a really unique title and job. So what got you involved in this in the first place?
Well, I've been a youth worker since 1984. And for most of that time, I've been with Christian mission agencies. And through the years, I would occasionally work with a young person who was being exploited in the sex industry. Really broke my heart, really gave me a burden for those kids who were suffering that particular kind of abuse. And eventually the Lord opened a door for me about 13 years ago to step into a role helping those young people.
Yeah, now you have a website called lifeworthy.ca. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you are doing?
Yeah, certainly. So with SIM, I came in fresh, developing a new program. We have a program that helps the young people who have been exploited, helping them exit the sex industry. We major on spiritual care, and we make referrals to other specialized resources where we may be out of our depth. But we build a community among these young women as they rely on each other and our volunteer leaders going forward. But there's a great opportunity as well for service that I hadn't even thought of until 5 years ago. A Christian couple approached me and said, "We need help. We need support. Our daughter is being trafficked in the sex industry." And so that led us on a journey to developing a ministry called Parents Hope. And we help and support parents who are going through the anguish of seeing a daughter exploited in this way.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of our viewers, I think we might have some awareness of the issue, but we don't realize how deep and how painful this story is for so many. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around human trafficking. And when you and I were talking the other day, we were just kind of exploring that. And so, yeah, just talk to us a little bit about some of those misconceptions that maybe our viewers might have and how we can break them to make a difference in this area.
Well, sure. It's somewhat complex, but as anyone would realize, we live in an age when our youth culture is hyper-sexualized. The predatory industry of prostitution and stripping and pornography very easily entices our young people because they've lowered their defenses to even thinking about these types of things. Our young people are being exposed to pornography at young ages. They're very open, in contrast to 30 years ago, to the idea of engaging in prostitution. And there's a lot of money to be made. Why? Because the demand for sexual services is so high. And so with that money to be made, we have a tremendous problem with young men across Canada taking advantage of these young women for their own profits. And that is essentially human trafficking.
Yeah, and I think when you and I were talking, one of the things that was really an awareness piece for me is that often we think that a lot of those victims are being held against their will, that it's a very dark, it is dark, but that they are almost trapped in this lifestyle. And what you said to me was that not necessarily, is not always the case. Just unpack that again for me just a little bit.
Yeah, certainly in different parts of the world, you may find that kidnapping and forcible confinement is much more common in the sex industry. That does happen to some degree in Canada, but generally these young women are enticed and they're romanced, and their human trafficker, they may perceive as their boyfriend, and they're in love. And they think if they can do a little better, if they can be a little more obedient, if they can earn a little more money, that promise that he's made, that they're going to get married and have a house and raise a family, that promise is attainable. And so there's a lot of young women who are lured in, or to some degree, maybe of their own volition, choose to enter into the sex industry, only to realize that it is inherently exploitative, and they're almost certain to become at some point a victim of human trafficking.
Yeah, and it is really so heartbreaking. And some of the stories that we know or you've heard. And again, I think for a lot of people watching, you can kind of feel helpless, but there are things that you are doing. And one of the interesting things that you're involved with was Men Ending Trafficking. Tell me a little bit about what that organization does and how you help those victims who maybe find themselves in a position where they don't want to be and want to get out. What do they do?
Yeah, so Men Ending Trafficking is a great project. It actually began as a program in SIM. And we, 3 years ago, launched it as an independent charity. And the concept is quite simple: to have a platform by which men, and to some degree women as well, from local churches can get involved in meaningful ways that help. But, we live in an age where we're being told that any masculinity is toxic masculinity. But listen to how God commands us men in Isaiah 58. We are instructed to loosen the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, and to set the oppressed free. So we're calling to men to have a voice on this issue, and to join with us. We do give some practical ways to get involved that actually do involve protective services for victims.
Yeah, and so I think for our viewers today, just this awareness that it really actually is a major problem, even in the great nation of Canada, and that there are organizations doing things. And so I just really appreciate the work that you are doing. And so again, we're going to come back in just a moment and talk about maybe some ways you can get involved and some ways that you can make a difference. Let's work together to see human trafficking come to an end in the great nation of Canada. We'll be right back.